The other is a shortened version, 14 pages only, that simplifies, but he makes it an academic paper. His thesis, this one, is much longer, much more detailed. I'm busy reading through both. I've almost finished the 14-page one, and I'm reading this one. This is fascinating. Concordia Seminary, by the way, is one of 2 private seminaries of the Lutheran Church in America. Okay? Dragon says, please pray for Brother Nanda, cousin of a dear brother, 36 years old. Today is his birthday. He's in coma after a stroke and 1 surgery. Please pray for his healing and family. So we'll pray for him. Keep him in your prayers, guys. Keep him in your thoughts, please. And also pray for Israel. I have friends in Israel. I have been contacting them and sending them wishes, and I pray for their safety. So, what's happening there is really unfortunate and really sad. Jesus Christ of the Latter Day Saints, where we eat wheels and ride on pizzas. So, guys, let's lay off the theological jokes. Let's focus on the topic at hand. So, this is written by Gukhan Bai. It is a really interesting paper. It's an excellent paper. So, as you can see, it comes from a Lutheran, and this guy starts to really do some good stuff here. And he says here, he says the Gnostics were very tricky and cunning. Irenaeus had to combat them in every way, as the following quotation shows. Slippery as serpents, and endeavoring to escape every way. Every way, therefore, we must withstand them. And he says that, then he goes on, the Gnostics regarded themselves as Christians. Isn't that interesting? The Gnostics claimed to be true Christians, original Christians, even though they violated basic Christian doctrines. They utterly contradicted the Bible. Irenaeus regarded them as heretics. The Gnostics claimed that they had apostolic tradition and somehow tried to relate their teachings to this tradition. Diamond Low, thank you very much for the support. And I've got Mr. Calvin here because you know why, right? He made the claim that his beliefs were explicitly historical, explicitly apostolic, and were traceable in history more so than were Catholic doctrines. And we can prove he is wrong. And the thing is, he made the claim. If the claim proves wrong, then he was either lying or wrong, and then what is the basis, what is the validity of his beliefs? On the other hand, according to Irenaeus, Gnostic teachings were neither apostolic nor Christian. By the same token, if we can demonstrate that there's a deficiency of apostolicity within the Protestant teachings, where does that lead us? So he believed that the Gnostics were outside of the church and had no apostolic tradition at all. Interestingly, Irenaeus didn't believe that anyone outside of the Catholic Church had a valid religion. So the apostolic tradition was delivered and preserved through historical succession only, and also only in the church, within the Catholic Church. So this does lead to a challenge. Protestant denominations must prove their succession to be valid. If this argument is valid against the Gnostics, and he provided evidence of the Catholic Church succession all the way back to the apostles, and this was a valid argument that defeated the Gnostics, if the Protestant churches cannot demonstrate apostolic succession, this calls into question the Protestant church's authority and legitimacy. Hopefully you see that this is a serious, serious issue. Yeah, the Cathars were insane. I'll be doing a talk about them sometime. The Cathars were insane, and they believed they were the true Christians. Exactly. Everyone with utterly contradictory doctrine were all claiming to be the true Christians. How can you have utterly contradictory doctrines and yet make the claim that you are the true Christians? Did they have churches and communions? If so, what did they look like? Like modern Protestant churches? Like, no. So the basic difference of understanding between Irenaeus and the Gnostics seems to have been the main factor of the struggle. Now, because of their intention, he says here, to keep themselves within the Christian boundary, the Gnostics tried to use even non-Christian philosophy under the name of the prophets and apostles. And when I talk further in the future about Calvin, we're going to see that Calvin explicitly utilizes Gnostic philosophy. He makes appeals to the Manichaeans. We're going to see that Calvin is appealing to heresy to prove he's Christian bona fides. That makes him unchristian. That makes him a Gnostic. So while he might have certain Christian practices, he most certainly is practicing Gnosticism. And as I've mentioned before, all of the Protestant groups, every single one, when you trace the history, when I get around to that talk, all of them trace their way through heresy. Just bluntly, every single Protestant tradition traces its way through heresy to get to an apostolic succession. This is problematic. So, and related all their systems to Christian doctrines, even though they colored all things with Gnostic features. So because of his intention to keep them out of the church, Irenaeus disclosed what they were and why they were not apostolic. Hopefully that makes sense. So Irenaeus' arguments still hold today. So he says there were many differences between so-called apostolic teachings claimed by the Gnostics and the apostolic tradition testified to by Irenaeus. Especially differences in the problems of historical succession, antiquity, and the unity of the teachings, which were noticeable. Now the question is, we've already discussed earlier, do we assume that Irenaeus was wrong, or do we assume that Calvin was wrong, right? Who do we prefer? And obviously we should prefer Irenaeus. It would make great sense. He's earlier, right? So if we choose Calvin's position, then we have to disregard and we have to reject Irenaeus. The problem is that the two contradict each other. They do not complement each other. Cathars were vegans. We're going to be discussing that. Yes, vegan Gnostics. Yes, SDRC 92126. Yes, Hitler was vegan. Cathar Castle in France supposed to cite the Holy Grail. Yeah. Okay, so largely through Irenaeus' disclosure, we can compare how they differ. So under the chapter Guarantee of Historical Succession, he says the church, according to Irenaeus, is apostolic, and the continuity of its apostolic descent is the safeguard of the apostolic tradition. For the apostles entrusted the churches to the bishops. This already just starts to go against typical Protestant claims, right? I say this as an Anglican, right? As a Protestant, right? For the apostles entrusted the churches to the bishops as the guarantor of the Christian faith, generation after generation, through succession. The church alone, therefore, preserves the apostolic tradition guaranteed by the historical succession and is therefore apostolic. Succession provides authority. Succession proves the lineage back to the beginning. Can the Protestant church prove that? To prove this historical succession, Irenaeus not only listed successively the names of the bishops, right, but also illustrated in detail how the presbyters were historically connected with the apostles. So he listed the names of the bishops of the Roman Church. So he went through the list of all of the bishops, all of the popes of the Roman Catholic Church, and he showed how all the priests were connected with the apostles in terms of practice, in terms of lineage, historical connections. There is no apostolic tradition, he said, outside of the church. Therefore, Irenaeus writes, though the dispute were but of some ordinary question, would it not be meet to recur to the most ancient churches? Would it not be logical or sensible to make reference to the most ancient churches, where the apostles went in and out, and from them to receive on any present question that which is certain and clear indeed? He's making an appeal to tradition and history.